Cameron Winklevoss is taking it up a notch, and Gemini's Cameron Winklevoss, and calling for Barry Silbert's ouster from DCG. This was just published on CoinDesk, so it's getting even more heated. I guess, which is actually related to the question I was just going to ask you. If we can just game this out a little bit. I mean, obviously we have no idea what anyone did or what's going to be ruled, but like, if DCG is found of wrongdoing, right? Like, what are some of the possible things that could happen to DCG? Like, what are some of the possible consequences? And then what does that mean for the crypto industry, right? Because that's what everybody's asking. That's the question that we're getting every day. It's like, what's going to happen to DCG and then what? I mean, I'm just, I obviously this is a thought experiment, but I'm just curious, like, if you could play out some of the different scenarios here.
Thanks, Emily. And it's a great question. I'll do my best. I think, at first, the first question is whether, if DCG should be, accused of wrongdoing. Now, this would be obviously if subpoenas are going out, this is in the very early stages of an investigation. They're going to have weeks, if not months, to respond, and they'll be collecting emails. There'll be negotiations between lawyers with DCG and law enforcement officials regarding, what type of documents are going to be turned over. This will be a months, if not longer, process in terms of understanding exactly, what was happening within DCG. So I think the timeline for that is going to be perhaps, again, you can't make predictions in this business, but it might be a little longer than certainly what we've seen with other investigations in the industry. And how it could play out, it will really depend on the fiscal solvency of DCG. If there is leadership changes, if there is, there's going to be a lot of interest in what the worth of the assets that are held and controlled by DCG, and who has claim to those assets. That's going to be really, I think, the principal question. If there is some sort of claim of wrongdoing, but just to go back to what I said earlier, subpoenas, these are scary words for sure. No one wants to get a subpoena. Subpoenas are a very common practice across the financial services regulatory ecosystem. And I just think it's too early for us to assume that because there is subpoenas going out, that there's going to be some sort of finding of wrongdoing. There's just a night and day difference, I believe, between entities that are based here in the United States and organized under laws here in the United States versus some of these much more opaque overseas entities that really do not take risk management seriously. And then going, to the second question, the impact on the industry at large, I think we are seeing time and time again, as the market goes down, an extraordinary pressure testing of every single entity in this ecosystem. The famous Warren Buffett quote, what is it, when the tide goes out, you see who is swimming naked. That's what we're seeing now. We're seeing it from a market perspective. Every piece of liquidation is being washed out. Any entity that didn't take risk management or regulatory compliance seriously from day one is being exposed. And we're going to keep seeing that happening until only the strongest players are left. That's what I believe. And so it is both good news and bad news. The bad news, of course, is the pain on the chart that Lawrence was walking us through earlier. But the good news is that the entities that managed to survive this will be on a much stronger foundation going forward, and also will have the benefit of learning numerous lessons in a very short time period, which they can then integrate into their own operations and risk management.